This is Steve. This is Steve. Welcome. This is Steve. Welcome to SFO, where we put the faux in faux real. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2019, I was on the All About Hair blog, which was floating the potential of the two-part or multi-part hairstyle. Steve, you, who have not changed your hairstyle since 2013, were on a hair blog 3 years ago and never pulled the trigger? Well, for one, thank you. Two, the pandemic hit and kind of took over, and double parts went the way of working a job or even getting surgery. But we are in America, and there is the ongoing potential for revolution if nature doesn't get there first. This episode, SFO takes a fine-toothed comb to the musical world and finds Moreton, who have a sobering front row seat to an imminent tragedy, and Deathbell, whose ominous ambiguity reminds us that just because you have a ladder doesn't mean you're going up. But first, the multi-part elegance of Mykki Blanco and Your Love Was a Gift. I'm from Cali, Carolina, easy breezy, hate me, you don't date me, you don't understand. So when I refer to Mykki Blanco's multi-part brilliance, I'm not talking about, well, hair of course, vocal harmonies and arrangements, but songs that have two or more substantial sections that stray beyond the typical verse, chorus, verse, bridge sort of pop structure that many of our beloved songs enjoy. Often these multi-part compositions tend to be stately and epic, like A Day in the Life by the Beatles, Stairway to Heaven, or even November Rain. Except in those songs, each section sort of comes with an announcement, especially Stairway to Heaven, where the guitars play the initial melody first so that we're all up to speed and then the song goes forth. Alternatively, there are songs, if you've been catching up with me on Instagram lately, such as Brute by Bortz Minort and Hug Victim, where the sections, in this case LA Hardcore meets Yacht Rock, are split up by these huge chunks of static. Anyone who grew up without cable TV or a remote control can tell you about the burst of white noise as you chunk the channel between just from 2 to 5. You had two bursts of noise. And if you grew up in Chicago, there was a long journey from PBS on channel 11 to Fox on channel 32. And don't tell me about the CIU 26. That never came in clearly. Back to Your Love Was a Gift. Mykki Blanco doesn't have very solid transitions, but he lets the song morph around like it's jazz. Now, before jazz is any sort of popular music without vocals, it was like torture to them. Like, the music's playing, but when is the song going to start? But the jazziness of Your Love Was a Gift is in the vocals. There are 3 main vocal parts, 4 if you include this sermon that's preached. But Diana Gordon, her part is smooth with kind of spiky bits like she's a trumpet. Mykki Blanco is a trombone wired through the voice of Chance the Rapper, and then Sam Buck leads the song out with a kind of a smoky saxophone. And instead of epic, this is just a 4-minute pop song that serves as a sprawling meditation on self-love. Check it out.
I'm not a secret, don't keep me locked away. Don't you feel that way?
The beat fades in like it's always just sort of been there, and Gordon has audible with the melody. It's almost like then downshifts the whole song, wrapping his verse with, like I said, a sort of Chance the Rapper sort of cadence, and Gordon is in the background. It would be enough song at this point. But then it leans into a sermon from the pulpit, kind of uncredited, I think. I don't know who it is or if it's an old recording, but it's sort of Martin Luther King-ish in its soul-stirring call to belief and love before Sam Buck, poor guy, must feel like Darius Rucker having to close a concert that starred Dua Lipa, Pharrell, and The Clash. He parachutes Stipe, Saul Williams, and Kelsey Lou, I think. The album Stay Close to Music arrives October 14th via Transgressive Music. Blanco just finished a tour opening for Florence and the Machine in the United States and will set off to Ireland and the UK in December. Links are below.
I think you're going way too hard, man. Right in the edges of the black.
of my favorite stand-up bits from the past few years was by Kyle Kinane. I'm 42 years old and my name's Kyle. And he kind of explores the fact that there are no old Kyles and therefore he must be on borrowed time. Kinane then segues into a piece about how he's begun to inadvertently isolate himself by becoming an aging partier. His more domesticated friends are like booster rockets who, as the night goes on, they eventually detach. I've got to go to work in the morning. I've got kids to deal with. While Kyle just continues shooting toward the sun. Moreton's Down and Out is written from the perspective of those friends, and they don't think this shuttle is on an upward trajectory. Moreton is an indie rock trio from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Yeah, it's been a while since we were able to splash that image up there. And Moreton has come to specialize in songs with very heavy emotional themes. As you can imagine, there have been hundreds of songs since the pandemic that deal with depression and substance abuse. And not to say that this is the only one like it, but it stands out because it deals very explicitly with the idea of intervention. Georgia Potter's opening line, "I think you're going way too hard, man," lays it all out. Check it out.
All the troubles leaving patterns on you, and the worries leaving shadows on me.
What's compelling about the song is the delicate way with which Moreton reveal how close to the edge this person is. If you could see what I see, you'd hold yourself so tight. And they start detailing not only the wear that is visible on this person, but how it's ensnared everyone in their orbit so that they are worried to the point of physical sickness. Of course, the even more harrowing thing is we have no idea how this conversation turns out. If it was totally one-sided, if it was met with surrender, or if this whole conversation was just playing out in the narrator's head and this has not been delivered yet. Moreton have been working on new music since winning a grant for women in music back home. Their video for Down and Out is available on YouTube right now, and links are below. I was listening to a discussion between some friends of mine the other day who were talking about how they would sit and watch late night in their houses after everyone else has gone to sleep these crappy horror films like, Friday the 13th Part 40 or whatever they're on, or the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, the endless sequence of Mike Myers movies. Mike Myers, both. They're both endless. And they were kind of getting to the idea that it's hard to scare people anymore, and really one of the few ways to still do it is to startle them, have that jump out moment. Or it's now become the tease to the jump out moment, and then having someone jump out. An idea that was worked out best, not a horror film, but in the classic Hot Tub Time Machine and the one-armed Crispin Glover. Now, I'm not the sort of person who has to watch horror films during the day, or if I do watch them at night, I immediately have to go around the house turning all the lights on. But I have to admit that the music video for The Ladder by Deathbell kind of freaked me out. Hit me up in the comments with some suggestions for scary music videos. I think the only thing I can think of right now is Come to Daddy by the Aphex Twin. And at this point in my life, that video is just kind of funny. What gets me about the video is, maybe it's someone being very still and not being able to see their face, kind of like the end of the Blair Witch Project. And anyway, the Ladder adds the appropriate amount of tension and foreboding and heavy. Check it out. Soaring yet mournful, The Ladder combines elements of prog, doom metal, and post-metal like Rush, Isis, and Pelican in a blender. They simultaneously recall Tool as well. Vocalist Lauren Grainer, is that how you say Lauren in French? Lauren? Anyway, she has an androgynous lower register that becomes angelic as it rises. It's quite the weapon for them to have in their shed. Grainer governs the song calmly as she laments weaknesses that have plagued humankind since time immemorial. The guitars, bass, and drums march in lockstep while dropping out simultaneously and intuitively picking up again. The churning guitars are responsible for what's ostensibly the chorus, a punishing, descending pattern that ends up teetering on a cliff. There's also a part of it that reminds me of The Ritual by Testament. I can't quite put my finger on it, but that's kind of based on my own sort of journey. A Nocturnal Crossing was released earlier this year on Svart Records. The French band only played one concert this year, so we'll have to wait and see if there's any more news on that. Oh, and I searched that scary video up and down for someone with 2 or more parts in their hair. No dice. Links are below. Thank you for watching. Click like, subscribe, leave comments, all that good stuff. Follow my more recent reviews on Instagram and check out my silly little clips on YouTube and TikTok. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. This is Steve. Welcome to SFO, where we put the faux in faux show.